If there's one race car driver who's really not happy with how the 2022 racing season ended, it has to be Charles Leclerc. Now, people are saying that Charles and his team boss Masha Binotto haven't been talking to each other nicely since the race at Silverstone. This makes us wonder if Charles is thinking about leaving his team soon. Charles has a deal with Ferrari until early 2025, and Mercedes has a driver who's getting old and might retire soon. Toto Wolff from Mercedes said he wanted Charles on his team a long time ago and might get the chance to sign him. So could we see Charles driving for Mercedes? It's pretty clear that Charles isn't happy with the plans his team made for him last season, and that's why he might leave the team sooner than expected. There have been stories about Binotto leaving the team and the whole planning team getting fired. So we'll talk about that first in this video. We'll tell you why this is the less likely thing to happen in the Charles and Ferrari story, and talk about Charles joining Mercedes soon. So let's start with the 2022 season, some of the big mistakes Ferrari made, and what might happen next. Charles and Ferrari started the 2022 season really well, finishing first and second in Bahrain, and winning the race in Australia. In both of these races, Verstappen couldn't finish the race because his car broke down. But Max won the fight against Charles in the second race in Jeddah. At this point, Charles had 46 more points than Verstappen, even though Max won the championship. He set a record for winning a championship after being behind by the most points at any time in the season. This is one of the main reasons why Charles might decide that he's had enough, especially after his team made so many mistakes in choosing strategies this season. The car breaking down. Problems with the F175 car also played a huge part in how the season ended. Charles had to quit in Baku and Barcelona, while his teammate Carlos quit in Baku and Austria when his engine caught fire. But it's safe to say that Charles isn't happy with what happened in Monaco, Silverstone, Budapest, or Brazil. His team left him out on dry tires in Silverstone during a race where he was supposed to catch up a lot to Verstappen. Max had a race where he was just trying not to lose too many points. Instead of taking advantage of the second safety car, the team failed to bring Charles into the pit and left him out there alone. Charles went from first place to fourth place, with his teammate finishing seventh. The famous photo of Binotto pointing his finger at Charles and telling him not to talk to reporters about what happened has been shared everywhere since then. This was the breaking point of their friendship. Ferrari was already having trouble with race plans in Monaco early in the season. In Budapest, they knew that the hard tires wouldn't work well on their car because both Alpine cars proved this. However, they chose to use those tires anyway. Charles lost spots to both Red Bull cars, and Carlos lost spots to both Mercedes cars. This was also the race where Charles started in second place, but managed to finish in sixth place, while Verstappen won after starting in 10th place. In Brazil, Charles was the only one during sprint qualifying who was using intermediate tires because his team thought there was heavy rain at turn 12. When this turned out to be wrong, Charles was called back to the pit, but this happened after he had already passed the pit entrance. Mistake after mistake, and Charles was knocked out of the championship race. Not only that, but he had to fight for second place in the final race in Abu Dhabi, a race he won, but not with the confidence he deserved. Now that we've said all this, it's clear that changes need to happen at Ferrari. Even though many people defend Binotto and think he shouldn't be fired, it's obvious that the team's number one choice for winning the championship doesn't have a good relationship with the team boss. So two things could happen from this situation. The first is that the team fires everyone including Binotto and the people who make race strategies. The second is that the team keeps them but can't fix the friendship between Charles and the team, so Charles decides to leave. Story started going around about Binotto getting fired by the team after the Brazilian race, which was the latest big mistake. But the team has defended him, calling these stories untrue. The team will likely continue working with Binotto. After all, he did complete the job he was given, which was to bring Ferrari back to winning races in 2022, and that's exactly what he did. Although he did get the Ferrari fans' hopes way too high in the first three races, which is why the disappointment about how the 2022 season ended is huge. According to Leo Torini, there are talks at Ferrari about replacing Binotto. While making a mistake is being discussed in Italy, change doesn't guarantee winning. Red Bull is behind us, and Ferrari still loses anyway. John Elkann will surely point out to Masha the 1-2 finish Mercedes got in Brazil. There are lots of discussions, and it's normal to have them. The World Championship has been missing from Ferrari for way too long, but that would be a mistake. Why? Since 2008, Ferrari has gone from Jean Todt to Stefano Domenicali to Marco Mattiacci to Maurizio Arrivabene, and the result is 0 titles. To put it like Jose Mourinho said, this points us to the next possibility, which would be Charles leaving the team. Right now, he has a contract until the 2024 season, and this contract was made longer back in 2021. What makes us think that Charles is reconsidering his choices with Ferrari is because at first, it was reported that Charles would extend his deal until the 2026 season. Now that this hasn't happened, one can't help but wonder if Charles is thinking about leaving the team or not. Obviously, he has proven that he has championship skills. True, he made some driving mistakes in 2022 that cost him 32 points overall in Italy and France. However, if the team had been more consistent and able to make better decisions like Red Bull did, Charles would have had much better chances and many more points in the Drivers' Championship. What Charles learned in 2022 is that he can't count on his team at any moment, something that Verstappen was able to do in both of his championship-winning seasons. Now, there is one team that Charles could join after the 2024 season, and that is Mercedes. Even though Hamilton has been rumored to continue working with the Silver Arrows for at least 5 more years, if the team gets the chance to sign Charles, you can be sure they'll go for it. And to be honest, Hamilton would be happy to step down and give his seat to Charles, a young and talented driver who wants to win a championship, something he's been able to do even in a messed-up team like Ferrari. The media was the first to start this conversation with Charles when they asked him directly if he plans to join Mercedes from 2025 onwards, or more specifically in 2024. Charles was very surprised by this question, and it's safe to say he was caught off guard by it. His first response was that he wants to stay with Ferrari and win. Now, as he added, 2024 is a long time away, and there is still time left at Ferrari. Being at this team has always been my dream. My goal right now is to win with Ferrari, and then we'll see. But one can't help but wonder about the last part of this interview where Charles opens up the possibility that he plans on leaving Ferrari if he isn't happy with how things are going with the team. Obviously, his friendship with Binotto isn't going well right now. There is a high chance that he decides he's had enough and goes to a team that has experience winning championships. Not that Ferrari doesn't, but their last championship came in 2007, while Mercedes has ruled the sport for 8 straight seasons. If the opportunity is given to Charles, then he'll have a lot to think about. At this point, the team could try to make a deal with Charles that could include Binotto staying as team boss and the strategy team getting fired to make Charles happy. Time will tell whether Charles can drive for Mercedes, but with Wolff saying he's interested in having Charles back in 2020 and saying that he doesn't mind taking him from Ferrari, that says enough about this whole situation. So, what do you think about Charles and his chances of driving for Mercedes? Let us know in the comments below.